Discover the incredible life-changing gift revealed after helping a stranger in a snowstorm. The biting wind whipped at Jake's face as he stepped out of the garage long after the sun had dipped below the horizon. Snowflakes, fierce and unrelenting, danced around him, almost taunting with their chill, while his heart sank under the weight of his responsibilities. His hands, stained with grease and tinged with the remnants of a day's grind, gripped the steering wheel tighter as he battled the urge to rush home. His 2 kids were waiting, innocent, trusting, unaware of the financial storm brewing beyond the door of their modest house. "Please let this night be different," he murmured, a desperate prayer bleeding from his lips against the overwhelming cries of unpaid bills and looming debt. As he trudged through the tumultuous snowflakes, a flicker of red caught his eye, an elderly woman in a wool coat, frantically waving from her car buried deep in a snowbank. Could he really let himself get wrapped up in someone else's troubles when his own family depended on him? That familiar, selfish voice whispered in the back of his mind, urging him on, but an innate sense of duty clanged louder. With a deep breath, he veered his truck off the road, an acknowledgement of the values his father had instilled about lending a hand, no matter the cost. Together, they battled the snow, their laughter puncturing the bitter cold. She spoke of her late husband, a man full of dreams about transforming the community. Each heartfelt story wove its way into Jake's heart, igniting a spark inside him that he thought the weight of his life had extinguished. Suddenly, he didn't just see a snow-covered road, he glimpsed a path of potential. Could he somehow help honor this woman's dreams, merging them with his own unfulfilled ambitions? Every moment spent with her was a reminder of what truly mattered, the connection, the drive to act. Before he could wrestle with this newfound hope, reality crashed back, thirsting for attention. When Jake returned to the garage, though snow had ceased its relentless assault, an even harsher confrontation awaited him. His boss, red-faced and fuming, loomed over him. "You're wasting time on a nobody while your responsibilities pile up," he spat, wielding the truth like a weapon. His throat tightened as a war waged within him. Should he prioritize the needs of a faceless corporation or the principles that had been etched in his heart? The survival instinct for his family collided with the nagging loyalty to his own spirit, leaving him raw, exposed, and trembling. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As he processed the confrontation, dread settled over him like the ever-present Midwestern clouds, heavy and oppressive. The memory of the elderly woman's stories beckoned him, her dreams mixing with the unyielding burdens of work and household responsibilities. Could he risk it all? The nagging questions grew louder. With his family depending on every dollar, could he really leave his job to chase an uncertain dream? The internal battle intensified, leaving Jake on the precipice of decision, a storm of uncertainty and reason swirling in his chest. What if the tipping point lay right before him, just as it had with that woman? An unexpected revelation hung in the air, filling him with uncertainty, and with that weight he stood at a critical crossroads, his future teetering on the edge of choice, his heart heavy with the intensity of unanswered questions. The dawn broke with a cruel clarity, illuminating the remnants of yesterday's snowstorm, casting glimmers of freshly fallen snow. Jake stared out the window of his small, cluttered kitchen, his coffee cooling next to him as worries clamored for attention. The tension from the confrontation at work lingered, a spectral reminder of his boss's words echoing in his mind. Yet, amid the chaos of bills and responsibilities, The elderly woman's stories clung to him like a lifeline. He could still hear her voice, the way it danced with passion as she recounted tales of community gatherings, shared laughter, and dreams of making the world a better place. In another lifetime, Jake would have been one of those vibrant souls, someone who galvanized others into action. Today, however, he had become an architect of stagnation, building walls around his aspirations with each passing day at the garage. Sipping the now lukewarm coffee, he turned his attention to his children as they clamored for breakfast, their innocent laughter filling the air like a sweet melody. They were blissfully unaware of the turmoil gnawing at their father's insides. He missed the spark in their father's eyes that once promised adventure, and the realization struck him hard. If he couldn't honor his dreams, how could he inspire his kids to pursue theirs? Determined to unlock the chains imprisoning his ambitions, he pulled out a notepad. The act felt significant. The yellowed paper waited quietly, a blank canvas upon which he might sketch a dream. He began to write, words forming sentences, sentences morphing into a plan. He could work on community projects during the weekends, encourage local businesses to support them, just as that woman's husband had dreamed. With every stroke of his pen, hope unfurled once more, brushing the heaviness from his spirit. But the face of his boss floated back into view, skepticism etched deep. What if this was just another fleeting whim, another distraction from reality? As he scratched out ideas, fear crept in alongside determination. Perhaps starting something new meant risking everything, including the steady paycheck his family depended on. That night, as he lay in bed, Jake wrestled with himself. He thought of that sudden infectious sparkle in the elderly woman's eyes when she spoke of her husband's vision. Speaking it into existence was the first step. But what about his family's immediate needs? Could he justify the sacrifice? The mental math was painful, yet illuminating, almost liberating. Each number of expenses was a reminder of what he had to protect. But what if he could find a way to evolve, to merge his responsibilities with newfound ambition? He envisioned a local initiative, workshops for aspiring entrepreneurs perhaps. Could he invite others to dream together? The thought was intoxicating, but the shadows of uncertainty loomed over him, each creeping doubt stronger than the last. As the morning sun cast a warm glow in his room, Jake took a deep breath, realizing he was standing at the edge, not just of possibility, but of a genuine transformation. The question spiraled through his mind. Could he dare to reach for those dreams? With a new sense of resolve, Jake decided he would bring this idea to life. He would talk to the elderly woman again and seek genuine insight into her husband's passions. The coming days promised confrontation, inspiration, and perhaps even failure. But all of it felt alive, and for the first time in a long time, the prospect of change, however daunting, seemed like a perfect storm he yearned to navigate. And as the thought solidified, a new wave of fear broke over him. The true challenge wasn't just finding the strength to change, it was the impending confrontation with his boss, who would not easily let go of his control over Jake's professional life. It was already time to face the realities of his choices. The sun rose higher, filling Jake's small kitchen with a sense of urgency that seemed to tug him toward action. Each sip of coffee felt like gulping down a warm promise, a reminder that he needed to begin realizing his dreams. Today, he resolved, would not be spent in the shadows of his doubts. The first step was to reach out to the elderly woman again. But before that, he had to confront the specter lurking in his work life, his boss. With the resolve he hadn't felt in years, Jake stepped into the garage. The smell of oil and worn rubber suffocated him, while the rhythm of machinery hummed loudly around him, drowning out his thoughts. What was evident here felt stifling, a life on repeat, devoid of satisfaction. Despite the familiarity, he now viewed these walls as boundaries he'd built, a prison he'd constructed with each careful choice to prioritize safety over adventure. His boss swooped in, a hawk-eyed figure who had a way of cutting through the noise. The man's presence turned the room electric with tension. "Jake," he barked, "I need you to stay focused on the projects at hand. We can't afford distractions." The familiar chill settled in Jake's gut, anxiety threading through him like a creeping vine. "Understood," Jake replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. But beneath the surface he simmered, emotions battling for supremacy. Did his boss not see the potential wrestling within him? Did he not dream himself? The words rose in his throat, and he could almost taste the desperation for affirmation. Then he remembered the elderly woman, her remarkable spirit vibrating through her stories. Suddenly the churn of worry melted into a steely determination. "Maybe I should take on a weekend project," he said, checking his boss's reaction. "Something for the community, perhaps." His boss's brows knitted together, skepticism marking his expression. "You're already pushing your limits, Jake. Don't create more chaos." Each syllable from his mouth felt like an anchor, dragging Jake back into the abyss of complacency he so desperately wanted to escape. As his boss walked away, Jake felt something new unfurling within, an emboldened sense of duty to his purpose. Today was not just another workday, it was the moment the ground beneath him shifted. The idea of forging his dreams felt so much more vital than obeying the status quo. Later that afternoon, he met the elderly woman at the local cafe, an unassuming space filled with the scent of fresh pastries and the murmur of conversations. Her eyes glimmered when she recognized him. "You're back," she exclaimed, the warmth in her voice wrapping around him like a cherished blanket. "I want to help, to push forth your husband's vision," he declared, his heart thrumming with excitement. "I'm thinking about workshops, a space for aspiring entrepreneurs to gather, network, and share their dreams, just like you spoke of." Her face lit up, and for a moment they were both suspended in a bubble of possibility. "That's beautiful, Jake. That's how change begins, with small steps taken passionately." But amidst this moment of elation, Jake felt a pang of insecurity. Was he capable of executing this vision? Questions raced through his mind. What if nobody showed up? What if he failed? A flicker of self-doubt threatened to extinguish the light they had just ignited. He had to convince the woman, but also himself. Unbeknownst to Jake, challenges were lurking just beyond the horizon, and the conversation was only the beginning of a turbulent journey into uncharted territories. He needed clarity on how to breathe life into an idea that felt both urgent and fragile. As he left the cafe, a growing sense of anxiety anchored itself within him. He could not ignore half measures, not anymore. The risk was enshrined in hope. But could he truly contend with the repercussions awaiting him back at the garage? Determination surged once more, and he smiled as the doubts faded into the background. But his thoughts spiraled further. What repercussions awaited him at work when he brought his initiative to life? The time had come to face the immediate reality. He couldn't sit complacently on the edge forever. He had to leap. The next morning, Jake awoke to the relentless ringing of his alarm, a sound that now seemed more like a summons than a mere inconvenience. The thoughts from the night before tumbled around in his head, a cocktail of excitement and apprehension. He had finally committed to pursuing something meaningful, yet the weight of uncharted territory pressed heavily on his chest. As he prepared for work, he caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror. A familiar face looked back at him, but there was a new determination settling in the depths of his eyes. It was like peeling away the layers of someone who had long been hidden beneath the surface. He wasn't just a garage worker anymore. He was an architect of change. At least he wanted to be. Arriving at the garage felt different. The machinery buzzed with its usual clangor, but for Jake, it was noise that now served as a reminder of the life he was striving to leave behind. The moment he stepped inside, the familiar tension arose. His boss fixed his hawk-eyed gaze on Jake. "You're on time," he commented, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Surprised you didn't come in grumbling about the weekend." Jake clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to reply. Instead, he steeled himself with the thought of his previous encounter with the elderly woman. "Actually, I have something I'd like to propose," he said, surprising himself with the steadiness of his voice. "I want to start a workshop, something to help people develop their own ideas, a platform for aspiring entrepreneurs." His boss raised an eyebrow, visibly intrigued but still skeptical. "Another one of your plans? You know, they're going to take time and resources away from our current projects. Are you really ready to juggle all that?" The challenge in his boss's eyes felt like a flame, igniting Jake's resolve rather than extinguishing it. "I believe it can succeed. And if it does, think of the opportunities it can generate for the garage and for us as a team." His boss's expression hardened, but Jake held his ground, forcing himself to breathe deeply. The conversation unfolded with tension crackling in the air, yet Jake's voice remained steady, filled with conviction as he spoke about the elderly woman's passion and vision. For the first time, Jake felt a rush of power that he hadn't known he possessed, an ability to articulate his dreams and defend them. But as he left the office, the rush was swiftly replaced with uncertainty. The adrenaline faded, and self-doubt seeped in through every crevice. What if his boss said no? What if the workshop flopped? The questions morphed into heavy weights, dragging him down. Yet amidst the turmoil, clarity began to emerge. Jake found a small notebook buried under the clutter in his bag, remnants of a life filled with half-formed plans. Flipping it open, he noted the first steps he could take: identify potential speakers, find a location, draft a proposal. Each written word anchored him further on this path he had chosen. He was no longer merely dreaming. He was embracing action. The next few days zipped by in a flurry of ideas and emails. He reached out to local entrepreneurs, excited to gather a panel of diverse voices. He pored over resources, researching what made workshops successful. Even as nagging anxieties chased him at every turn, he pushed through, fueled by burgeoning ambition. But the pivotal moment came when the elderly woman reached out with an offer. She had connections in her network, individuals passionate about mentoring and sharing their experiences. Jake felt buoyant as he realized he wasn't alone in this venture. With the potential support emerging, he decided to hold a small meeting in the very cafe where they had brainstormed before. Just a handful of like-minded souls to gauge interest, to help him shape this dream into reality. That evening, excitement crackled in the air as he prepared, but for the first time, an undeniable fear took root. What if he couldn't rally anyone? Now, standing in the cafe, Jake confronted his reflection again, but this time he felt ready. Not without fear, but despite it. The door swung open, and hopeful faces trickled in, each bringing energy which sparked something alive within this unfamiliar but intoxicating venture. Amidst the flow of conversation, a shadow fell over the table. The familiar tension spiked as Jake recognized the figure from the doorway, his boss, standing resolute. "Jake," the man said, a hint of authority lacing his tone, "we need to talk about your little project." Every ounce of hope danced with uncertainty as the reality of his choices collided with the relentless ambition flourishing within him. Would the conversation be one of encouragement or derision? Would the leap he had taken be met with acceptance, or would it mark his fall into confrontation? This time, there was no backing away. As anger and fear swirled inside him, Jake readied himself to defend not just his dream, but the new version of himself he had begun to embrace. Jake squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of anticipation hang thick in the air. The hum of conversation faded into silence. his attention captured entirely by his boss's looming presence. The cafe, once vibrant with possibility, now felt like a high-stakes arena, and Jake was acutely aware of the watchful eyes of those who had come to support him. "Your little project," his boss reiterated, this time with a knowing smirk. "It seems you're throwing your whole career on the line, Jake." The jab stung, but he had come too far to let it cut deep. Taking a breath, he summoned the courage that had been brewing since the moment he dared to dream. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm building something." His boss's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of curiosity breaking through skepticism. It was an opportunity, albeit a razor-edged one, and Jake clenched the edge of his notebook, pivoting his focus from defensiveness to resolve. "Look, I get you have ambitions," his boss said, now leaning against the table. "But what happens if it all collapses? Are you just going to waltz back in here and pretend like nothing happened?" Jake felt the weight of doubt drip into his resolve, as if his boss's words could unravel everything he had built in the past weeks. "No, I won't," he responded firmly, refusing to back down. "But if it does fall apart, I'll have learned something. Isn't that better than staying stuck in a job where I feel trapped?" "Maybe," his boss replied, crossing his arms. "But you really think you can carry this project on your own, going against what this garage stands for?" Every question that spun from his boss's mouth plunged deeper into Jake's mind, but he anchored himself to the faces of the people surrounding him, the budding entrepreneurs who were looking for guidance, just like he had once. They were counting on him to seize this chance, even more than he was counting on them. "This is about more than just me," he said, rising to the challenge. "It's about creating a space for others. We can all grow together." "Listen," his boss said, lowering his voice. "This isn't just about your workshop. It's about the garage. You don't want to risk your credibility here over what might just be a passing phase." The chain of his boss's words wrapped tightly around Jake, each link designed to hold him back, yet he felt something like iron on a forge, the searing heat of resolve fueling his determination. "And what if it becomes something incredible?" he countered, keeping his voice steady. "What if it doesn't just stay a phase?" For a moment, they locked eyes. The air thickened, tension crackling like electricity between them. Jake could see the tension in his boss's brow, the tension that he needed to ease, yet he felt exhilarated, with the clarity of his ambition pulsating through him. This was what it felt like to confront adversity head-on. His boss took a step back, his demeanor softening. "Okay, I'll admit, it's compelling to see you fight for this. But," he held Jake's gaze firmly, "you'll have to show results. Prove that this is more than just a dream. Otherwise I'll reevaluate," he interrupted, this time with a smile that felt infectious. "And I'll accept a no if that comes, but at least I'll try." Jake could see the slightest nod of acknowledgement from his boss. Perhaps there was hope yet. With one last lingering glance, Jake turned away, deflated but invigorated. The cafe thrummed back into focus. Conversations flared up again, whispers of excitement and possibility igniting the room. It was as if fear had breathed life into his project, pushing him closer to the edge. Yet, in that moment, he realized he had not only stepped toward growth, but had also solidified who he was becoming, someone who could stand firm amidst doubt. "Ready to get started?" he finally asked the gathered crowd, their eager faces lighting up. But inside, a voice whispered reminders of that looming otherwise. He needed to formulate a plan, not just for the workshop, but for himself. The meeting transitioned into a brainstorming session. Notes flowed, ideas surged, the enthusiasm of his peers propelling him forward. Yet the nagging worry lingered, shadowing every idea shared. What if he failed to meet his own expectations? What if this project, rooted in hope, wilted under the weight of reality? As the meeting wound down, Jake felt a solid resolve emerging alongside fear. But now wasn't the time for second-guessing. It was about execution, about turning words into action. His heart raced as he left the cafe, knowing that this upcoming week needed to be pivotal. It needed to hold the momentum he had built. Would he step into the unknown and courageously claim his dreams? Or would the weight of his worries hinder his resolve? The moment was draped in possibilities, and as he walked toward his car, Jake understood the real test was just beginning. With each step toward his car, Jake felt the echo of his boss's final thoughts gnawing at him. The stakes were inherent, and the urgency of his situation clawed at his insides. The week ahead loomed large. He needed a blueprint for not just his project, but for his own growth. Jake started the engine, the rumble grounding him momentarily, but that moment of peace faded as soon as he merged into traffic. The road ahead was clear, yet his mind felt tangled, a web of ideas flashing through with each stoplight. Borrowing focus from dizzying possibilities, he was struck with a thought. Planning would require more than just dreams. It demanded discipline and determination. It was time to look beyond his fears and challenge himself to rise through practical execution. His first task was a detailed outline of the workshop structure. This meant fleshing out not just what they would create during workshops, but also defining the culture he wanted to cultivate. Jake envisioned a space regarded not merely as a workshop, but as a hub of innovation, a community of creators learning from both successes and failures. The realization hit him that the real craftsmanship wasn't in the projects, but in the connections he fostered. Pulling into his driveway, he paused, considering what he stood to lose and the value this risk held. The project was a part of him now, its success intertwined with his emerging identity. It demanded authenticity, so he pushed deeper into his internal reservoir. What did he truly believe in? What were his convictions about growth and creativity? He moved to his kitchen table, setting up a makeshift war room with whiteboards and sticky notes. Each note represented an idea, a challenge, or an urgent reminder. Under each, he jotted down actionable steps to carve a path forward. Perhaps setting up a weekly feature showcasing participants' projects could build excitement. Outsourcing skills from different trades would also spark collaboration and elevate everyone involved. Hours sped by in a blur of creativity. He bounced ideas off imagined opponents in his mind, rehearsing possible questions and roadblocks to ensure he was prepared. Each challenge he visualized matured into a solution, pushing his resolve even further. That evening, as darkness draped over the neighborhood, Jake felt an unfamiliar surge of confidence. This was what growth tasted like, the sweat of hard work, framing potential amidst uncertainty. But despite the progress, a nagging notion of vulnerability lingered. What if he still wasn't enough? What if the doubts he had about himself began to spin out of control once more? He dismissed those thoughts, reminding himself of the meeting earlier that day when he had boldly declared his intent. The vision felt almost tangible, a thread linking him to his aspirations. Tiring as it was to combat his fears, he understood that doubt was an inevitable part of this journey, one he was committed to facing. But just as he set his notebook down, a new thought seized him. He recalled the diverse skill sets within the entrepreneurial group he had started fostering. Perhaps he could schedule one-on-one sessions with individuals to learn their strengths and expectations. The idea lit a spark within him that ignited curiosity. By delving deeper into others' dreams, he might discover hidden strengths in himself that he had not yet acknowledged. Determination wrestled excitement. The dawning realization that he could not only transform a community but evolve in the process was electrifying. He would demand accountability, not just from others, but from himself. As he drifted off to sleep that night, the whisper of possibilities danced through his mind. Could he really step into the unknown and face a reality that challenged him to the core? Maybe in the end, the most profound transformation would not arise from the workshop itself, but from forging the hidden parts of his identity, those attributes he had yet to unearth. The week ahead was becoming a chrysalis, and Jake resolved to enter it ready to confront whatever emerged. Would his upcoming interactions reveal insights that would forever alter his journey? The thought resonated, wrapping around him as he drifted into sleep. The morning light crept lazily across Jake's kitchen table, illuminating a sea of scribbled notes and half-formed ideas. He blinked through the remnants of sleep, the weight of possibility lingering in the corners of his mind. Last night's momentum pushed him out of bed, fueled by a desire to embrace the unknown. Today, he had a plan. As he poured himself a cup of coffee, he glanced at his notes. The reminders of one-on-one sessions sprang to life in his thoughts. Each individual had a story, a unique perspective that could illuminate paths he had never considered. With newfound purpose, he grabbed his phone, confirming meetings with the first group of participants. Ava, the tech-savvy innovator, Marco, the artisan with a flair for storytelling, and Elise, a sustainability advocate with a passion for design. This was not simply networking, it was an exploration of each other's potentials. The air buzzed with anticipation as Jake drove toward the coffee shop for his first meeting with Ava. Beyond the ordinary pleasantries, he aimed to delve into her aspirations, unraveling layers that would help him reconnect with his own motivations. As he approached, his heartbeat quickened, not out of anxiety, but the thrill of weaving connections. They met, exchanging smiles that blossomed into conversation. "So, what drives you?" Jake opened, his tone inviting. Ava leaned back, sipping her coffee thoughtfully, the pause and analysis of his intention. "I want to change how people interact with technology," she said, her eyes sparking with conviction, like it should enhance creativity, not stifle it. Jake felt an echo of her excitement resonate within him. Her perspective was a portal, a glimpse into paths he had yet to traverse. He found himself engaging more hungrily with her ideas, discovering that the synergy was dynamically reciprocal. Each inquiry opened renewed vistas of innovation. As they parted, Jake felt lighter, invigorated by the exchange. He hadn't just learned about Ava, he had unearthed insights about himself. Realization struck. Understanding others did not merely expand his vision, it fundamentally reshaped his identity. Next on his list was Marco. The artisan's stories of barriers faced and bridges built through creativity felt like vivid tapestries, each thread recalling the essence of resilience. Jake realized how poignant each encounter was, like mirrors reflecting not just aspirations, but insecurities he had long avoided. "Sometimes you have to break what you create," Marco shared wistfully. "That's where the real art lies." Conversations morphed into philosophies, challenging Jake's perspective on failure. This new ethos demanded courage, an embrace of breaks and beginnings. When it was time to meet with Elise, Jake felt the weight of their discussions manifest in a compelling vision for collaboration. Sustainability threaded through every project, yet Jake knew his work needed that layer of responsibility too. Elise's ideas on eco-friendly workspace designs ignited a fervor within him. He had a responsibility not only to innovate, but to nurture an environment that echoed respect for the planet. As the day unfolded, the reassuring refrain of growth resonated deeper. With each interaction, silence morphed into symphonies of shared passion. Ideas bloomed like wildfire, parched dreams thriving on the humid air of optimism. Yet as night began its descent, a flicker of doubt re-emerged. The more he uncovered in others, the more he questioned his own depth. Was he losing himself as he aimed to create a space for others? The prospect unnerved him. The fear of crafting a facade in his pursuit of authenticity clawed at his resolve. With a decision looming, Jake committed to confront this shadow within. What if the true revelation lay not just in external exploration, but a deeper excavation of his own past experiences and values? Curiosity brimmed. Could he integrate what he learned from Ava, Marco, and Elise, not merely as inspiration, but as a fundamental part of his emerging identity? That night, sleep evaded him. The hum of anticipation fought against whispers of vulnerability. What if uncovering his true self required dismantling the very fears that held him back? The urgency of this realization gripped him tightly, leaving him in a continuous wrestling match between self-doubt and unyielding ambition. Would tomorrow bring a breakthrough, or would he encounter the very walls he had tried to break? Jake lay awake, pondering whether the most profound lessons would surface from both revelation and resistance as he ventured further into this uncharted territory. The challenge was clear. The call to action echoed like a distant drum. As dawn broke, casting a soft glow through his window, Jake's thoughts were consumed by the realizations of the night before. Each conversation from the previous day resonated within him, a fragmented melody searching for harmony. He needed to venture deeper, not just into professional spaces with others, but into the intricate paths of his own past. Today would be different. Armed with the insights from Ava, Marco, and Elise, he set a plan. It was time to confront the lingering self-doubts that had shadowed him for too long. The ghosts of his early ambitions beckoned him forward. What had he wanted before life's distractions had clouded his vision? After a brief morning routine, Jake found himself in a park with a small notebook. The air was crisp, invigorating his mind as he began to jot down his thoughts. What was it he truly valued? With each line, he unearthed pieces of himself that had long been buried beneath obligations and expectations. Creativity had been his lifeblood in his youth. Why had he allowed it to fade? Suddenly he remembered a sketch he'd drawn years ago, an incredible vision he'd named the Bridge of Ideas, a design that symbolized connection. It was for a community project that had never found the light of day. Frustration surged within him at the missed opportunity, but also a rush of resolve. What if, he thought, I take this vision and ignite it again? The act of recalling that dream felt cathartic. As he contemplated bringing the Bridge of Ideas back to life, each pen stroke on the page fueled him. He envisioned not just the structure, but the narratives it could spark. Community connections, intercultural dialogues, shared creativity, a catalyst for change, not just for him, but for others too. Inspired, he knew this was part of the integration he sought, taking his past ambitions and recontextualizing them in light of his newfound insights. Fueled by adrenaline, Jake rushed home, the sketch fluttering within his mind. He didn't want a simple design sketch. He needed to create a proper vision that aligned with the principles shared by his new acquaintances. What would sustainability and innovation look like in a project that aimed to inspire? With the echoes of Ava's tech-forward thinking, Marco's creative resilience, and Elise's environmental consciousness, Jake crafted a proposal that pulsated with life. But as excitement swelled, so did anxiety. He remembered Marco's words about breaking creations to find art. Was he even capable of handling the challenges that lay ahead with such ambitious designs? This project could flourish or fail, and in that paradox lived the test of his resolve. Feeling the weight of his aspirations, Jake decided he would need allies beyond his past discussions. He recalled a fellow architect, Sarah, whose work always captivated him. If he wanted to craft something substantial, someone with her drive and vision would be essential. The thought of reaching out sparked both enthusiasm and dread, a confrontation with an influential figure who had achieved so much more than him. As he found her contact information, his fingers hesitated over the keys. Doubt seeped back in, whispering about risk and rejection. The familiar nagging fear threatened to derail his momentum. What if she dismissed his idea outright? What if, in a moment of vulnerability, he failed to secure the collaboration he envisioned? Gritting his teeth, Jake composed the message, pouring both longing and trepidation into it. "I have an idea I'd love to collaborate on," he wrote, sharing just enough to pique her interest without revealing the full extent of his self-doubt. As he hesitated to hit send, the air in the room seemed charged with anticipation and fear. Would this single email act as a bridge to his future, or would it disappear into the ether, lost among countless others? With a deep breath, Jake pressed send, feeling a mixture of relief and trepidation. He had taken a pivotal step, but the real question loomed. Was he ready to embrace the consequences, whatever they might be? Jake had crossed the threshold of doubt. But uncertainty remained, harsh and unyielding. Tomorrow he would check for a response. But would he be prepared, come what may? A sense of anxious anticipation filled the hours following Jake's bold step. Each tick of the clock felt disproportionately loud as he moved through the afternoon. He tried redirecting his focus, plunging deeper into the intricacies of his proposal, but his mind remained tethered to that solitary email. Visions of Sarah's likely reaction flared in his mind. Would she see potential or disregard him as just another hopeful architect? In a moment of respite, he glanced out the window, soaking in the sights of his neighborhood as he took a deep breath. The hustle of the city often mirrored the chaos within him, yet there was a certain beauty to it, the rhythm of life, the frisson of art hidden in urban corners. These daily observations stirred within him the notion that each street, every building held stories waiting to be told, much like his own journey. Determined, he returned to his sketches, channeling the tension into creativity. As the sun dipped, he lost himself in the contours and lines of the Bridge of Ideas. He envisioned it nestled between two lively neighborhoods, serving as a passageway that would unite differing perspectives. What materials should he propose? How would he integrate eco-friendly elements to align with Elise's views? But just as his inspiration flowed freely, doubts surged back, clawing at the edges of his consciousness. Was he really equipped to execute such a monumental dream? He recalled the fragile beginnings of his previous projects. How oftentimes fear had undermined his confidence. He had learned to dance with the shadows of self-doubt instead of crushing them, but this time felt different. The stakes had escalated, and the need for collaboration added weight. Seeking a distraction, Jake glanced towards his phone, contemplating a decision he had avoided all day. A response from Sarah could change everything. Would it elevate his ambitions or further shroud him in uncertainty? He let out a shaky breath. Finally, he sent a message to Marco, seeking reprieve from uncertainty. "Hey, I sent the email to Sarah. Now I'm second-guessing everything, just waiting for a response." Marco's reply came almost instantly, soothing Jake's nerves. "You took the step. That counts for something. Remember, every great creation faced skepticism first. If she doesn't respond, keep moving. Build that bridge, metaphorically and literally." The reassurance rekindled a small flicker of hope within him. Perhaps the path laid before him wouldn't always align perfectly, but the journey was still valid. Each moment spent dithering in doubt could also be time to refine his vision. That night, Jake dove back into his sketches, drafting ideas that echoed with potential. He began to question his own perceptions of failure and success. What if the proposal didn't pan out as he envisioned? Was there more to learn in attempting than in succeeding? In an enlightening moment, he realized that each setback had nurtured a vital part of his growth, forming the bedrock upon which his new project could stand. As he continued to work late into the night, exhaustion set in, but so did clarity. He had shifted from merely yearning for approval to crafting something genuinely meaningful. The thrill of creation, the catharsis of laying bare his concepts to the world, drowned out the fatigue. At last, the designs felt authentic, echoing his reclaimed passion. Jake nestled into bed, a cautious excitement swelling in his chest. If only he could step outside the veil of self-doubt. Just as his eyelids began to flutter, a notification chimed on his phone, a message from Sarah. Jake's heart raced at this unexpected moment. Would this catalyst propel him further toward fulfillment, or would the flames of his ambition flicker out? He braced himself as he opened the message, knowing that the next chapter of his journey hinged on what lay within. Jake's heart pounded as he read Sarah's response. "Hi, Jake. I love the idea of your bridge of ideas. I'd be happy to meet and discuss it further. Let's schedule a time." Elation coursed through him, eclipsing the remnants of doubt that lingered. This was validation, not just of his project, but of who he had grown into, a man willing to take risks for a purpose beyond himself. The moment marked a turning point. With renewed energy, Jake dove into preparations for their meeting, eager to flesh out the potential of his idea. He pored over his notes, refining the vision of the bridge, focusing on its capacity to connect not just two neighborhoods, but diverse ideas and aspirations. He outlined how it could serve as a hub for workshops, community gatherings, and entrepreneurial support, a vibrant space steeped in collaboration and innovation. When the day arrived, he dressed with intention, his confidence shining through as he made his way to the cafe for their meeting. As he settled into the chair across from Sarah, he felt a surge of purpose. They exchanged pleasantries, and soon he found himself sharing not just the mechanics of his project, but the heart behind it. This bridge could symbolize hope and connectivity, a haven for aspiring entrepreneurs and creators, he said, passion seeping into every word. But what I really want is to foster an environment that nurtures dreams and brings people together. Sarah nodded intently, her expression thoughtful. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. She asked insightful questions that prompted him to explore dimensions of his vision he hadn't considered, turning the meeting into a collaborative brainstorming session. Ideas began to take shape, resonating with Sarah's own experience in community engagement and design. With each passing moment, Jake felt layers of his past beliefs slough away. He was no longer confined by the need for approval. This was a shared exploration. Through their dialogue, he not only conveyed his aspirations, but also absorbed valuable insights from Sarah that strengthened his resolve. "I can help you with the logistics," she said, her enthusiasm palpable. "We can also integrate sustainable practices, ensuring the project aligns with our shared values." In that exchange, Jake experienced a profound transformation. He was not merely a dreamer, but an architect in collaboration, effectively building a tapestry woven from diverse ambitions. The weight of responsibility shifted from his shoulders. He was no longer alone in the pursuit of his vision. After the meeting, Jake felt invigorated by the momentum. Armed with a clearer outline and newfound ideas, he wasted no time. He began assembling a more formal proposal, incorporating elements from their conversation. He envisioned not just construction, but also pathways for mentorship, partnership, and networking, an entire ecosystem devoted to cultivating creativity. Weeks passed, and with each passing day, Jake solicited feedback, met with potential collaborators, and began sharing his vision more broadly. He approached entrepreneurs, artists, and community leaders, weaving their stories into the fabric of the project. It felt exhilarating to witness the ebb and flow of ideas and how they infused his vision with a powerful energy. That fateful day at the cafe had given him more than just a collaborator. It unveiled a community willing to support one another's ambitions. Jake hadn't just built a bridge, he witnessed a blossoming network of shared dreams waiting to be realized. Finally, the day came to present the Bridge of Ideas publicly, a pitching event at the local community center. Gathered were city officials, entrepreneurs, and neighbors curious about the intriguing concept unfolding in their midst. Jake stood at the podium, the room buzzing with anticipation. As he spoke, each word dripped with clarity. He told not only of the plans for construction, but also of the purpose it would serve: empowerment, innovation, and collaboration. Confidence radiated from his presence. He had thoroughly embraced not just the role of a creator, but one of a community leader. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. People lined up in droves to express their interest in joining the initiative or supporting in various ways. In a moment, marked by certainty and affirmation, Jake realized the most significant achievement wasn't merely the launch of a project. It was the recognition that his individual vision had interconnected with collective aspirations. Days later, with excitement crackling in the air, the project enjoyed momentum, initial funding secured, and partnerships blossoming. Local businesses rallied behind the cause, eager to promote entrepreneurship within the community. Jake stood back, taking in the magnitude of what had unfolded, a culmination of hard work, determination, and a willingness to trust both himself and those around him. Through this journey, he had transformed. He was no longer the captive of self-doubt, but a confident leader who not only envisioned dreams, but cultivated pathways to actualize them. The bridge of ideas would become tangible evidence of collaboration and opportunity, but the greatest testament of all lay in his metamorphosis. Jake had learned to rise beyond fear, embrace vulnerability, and foster connection, impacting not just his life, but the lives of many others. In the end, he stood firmly rooted in the knowledge that his greatest achievements lay in the synthesis of shared dreams, the strength derived from unity, collaboration, and transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial and empowers us to create more impactful content. Comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the ending. You need to share your insights. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the inspiration.